The dawn rose slowly over Blackwood Forest, painting the world in pale gold and silver. In the castle, Cale moved silently through the tall halls, his amber eyes searching for any signs of danger. Yet today there was no immediate threat, only Alara. She stood in the library, her hand resting on the edge of a carved table, her eyes tracing the letters of a book she barely understood. She had changed since the night of the hunters. No longer timid, she walked with a quiet strength that Cale could not ignore. Her movements, though still careful, held purpose. She was learning to navigate not just the castle, but the shadows of her own courage. Cale entered the library, silent as always. "You've been reading that for hours," he said. His voice, deep and resonant, filled the room without needing to raise itself. Alara looked up, a small smile on her lips. "I want to understand. I want to learn. Everything you can teach me." Cale studied her for a moment. "Knowledge is dangerous. It can sharpen your mind, yes, but it can also awaken fears you may not be ready to face." "I am ready," she said firmly. "I want to be ready for whatever comes." There was a pause. Cale's gaze softened, though only slightly. Few ever spoke to him with such conviction, and even fewer survived the truth behind his eyes. "Very well," he said. "Then we begin." Days turned into weeks. Alara learned the castle's secret halls, discovered hidden rooms filled with scrolls of ancient magic, and felt the pulse of the land itself. She could sense the forest's life, the whispers of spirits and the shadows that lingered where others saw only darkness. Under Cale's guidance, her mind and senses sharpened, and through it all, Cale watched her. The cold, immortal warrior felt something stir in his chest that he had long believed dead. Hope, warmth, and a quiet affection that frightened him more than any enemy. He had lived centuries in isolation, feared and revered, yet he had never felt a connection like this. Alara's presence challenged him, softened him, and forced him to confront the loneliness he had carried for so long. One evening, under the full moon, Kyle took Alara to the castle balcony. The forest stretched endlessly beneath them, silvered by moonlight, and the wind whispered through the trees like a living song. "You have grown," Cale said quietly, his eyes reflecting the stars above. "Stronger, braver, more alive than any human I have ever known." Alara felt a rush of warmth at his words, but she also felt fear. "I still feel afraid," she admitted. "I'm learning to fight to survive, but sometimes I wonder if I will ever be enough." Cale reached for her hand, a gesture so gentle it almost startled her. "You are enough," he said. "More than enough. Your courage, your heart, your soul, they are stronger than most mortals and even many like me. Fear will always exist, but it does not define you." Alara's chest tightened. She had never heard such words from anyone, human or not. And yet, even as her heart stirred with hope, the world outside the castle walls threatened to undo everything. Rumors had begun to spread in Eldermoor. Whispers of a dark creature carrying off the farmer's daughter, tales of shadow and fire, and stories of a strange bond forming between mortal and vampire. Fear and envy fueled the villagers, and soon a group of hunters prepared to return, more determined and ruthless than before. Cale sensed them long before they arrived. He did not fear death. He feared for Alara. She had become more than a companion. She was his anchor, his reminder that even immortality could be touched by compassion. The attack came on a night heavy with fog. Torches glimmered in the distance, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the forest. Cale positioned himself in the great hall, waiting, while Alara stood beside him, unafraid. "You know what to do," Cale said, his amber eyes fixed on her. "Use what you have learned." "Trust yourself," Alara nodded. Her heart pounded, but she did not falter. As the hunters breached the outer gates, she felt the energy of the castle flow through her. Shadows seemed to bend to her will, and the forest itself whispered, guiding her movements. Cale moved with him, fast, precise, and deadly, but this time he was not alone. Alara's courage matched his skill. Together they disarmed the hunters not with cruelty, but with power and precision. During the battle, a hunter aimed an arrow directly at Cale. Alara reacted instinctively, stepping into its path. The arrow struck the stone floor beside her, and she barely held her balance. Kyle caught her instantly, pulling her close, and for the first time in centuries he showed vulnerability, not fear of the hunter, but fear for the girl who had come to mean everything. "You are remarkable," he whispered, holding her tightly, "braver than I have ever seen." Ilara felt her cheeks flush, a warmth spreading through her chest. "I learned from the best," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. "And I will not let you face this alone." By the time the hunters retreated, the castle was silent again, save for the whispers of wind through the windows. Cale examined his ward carefully, checking for injuries, but found only a few scrapes. His amber eyes held something softer than ever before. Admiration, awe, and something deeper. Ilara, too, looked at him with new understanding. She had survived the night not because of him alone, but because they faced it together. Their bond had shifted from fear and dependence to mutual respect, trust, and something neither dared to name yet. As the moonlight spilled across the balcony later that night, Cale finally spoke the words that had lingered unspoken for so long. "Life is fleeting," he said, his gaze distant. "I have lived centuries, seen kingdoms rise and fall, and yet never have I felt something like this. You remind me that even shadows can hold light. Even immortals can be redeemed." Ilara's hand reached for his, her fingers brushing against his. "And you remind me that courage isn't the absence of fear," she replied softly. "It's standing up even when fear is all around you. That is why I am not afraid." A silence followed, deep and charged, filled with words they could not yet speak. The stars above bore witness to their unspoken promise. To protect, to grow, to stand together against a world that would never fully understand them. In the weeks that followed, their connection deepened. Ilara explored her abilities further, sensing danger, communicating with the whispers of the forest, and learning to bend shadows to her will. Cale in turn let down walls centuries in the making. He shared memories, regrets, and the weight of an immortal life that had been lonely for too long. The castle, once cold and silent, began to feel alive with warmth and hope. Ilara's laughter echoed through the halls, blending with Cale's deep, calm voice, and for a time, it seemed as if the world outside could not touch them. But the peace was fragile. One evening, as they watched the moon rise together, a shadow moved at the edge of the forest, a figure unfamiliar, silent, and ominous. Cale's senses flared. This was no ordinary hunter. The air seemed to thicken, carrying with it an ancient, dark warning. "Something comes," Cale said, his voice low and cautious, "and it will test us both." Ilara felt a thrill of fear, yes, but also of determination. She had come too far to turn back. She would face whatever came with Cale by her side. Together they had transformed. She was no longer the girl mocked in Eldermoor. He was no longer the solitary predator of the Blackwood Forest. And though they did not yet know what waited for them, the bond between them was unbreakable. Love, trust, and courage had grown in the shadow of fear, and nothing, no darkness, no cruelty, no curse, could undo what they had discovered in each other. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a secret that only the two of them could understand. A story of redemption, of transformation, and of a love that had survived scorn, fear, and shadows. The village of Eldermoor lay in the shadow of the Blackwood Forest, its cottages clustered tightly like frightened children under the heavy sky. Mist curled through the narrow streets, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and burning hearths. To the villagers, life was simple, predictable, and ruled by old fears, old grudges, and old customs. And yet in this quiet place, cruelty often found a home. Ilara, the farmer's daughter, knew this all too well. Her twisted leg had made her different from the other children, a source of whispers, snickers, and sometimes outright cruelty. She moved slowly through the market square, leaning heavily on her wooden cane, her head lowered against the stairs. Even the wind seemed to mock her, tugging at her skirts and brushing her hair across her face. On this day, the annual harvest festival was underway, and the entire village had gathered to celebrate. Bright banners fluttered from the cottages, and children ran with painted faces, carrying baskets of fruit and flowers. The villagers laughed and sang, their voices sharp with excitement. But for Ilara, the festival was a stage of humiliation. "Look at her," one girl whispered, pointing as Ilara passed. "She can barely walk, and she still thinks she belongs here." Laughter followed. Ilara's heart tightened. She ignored the words, wishing for invisibility, but it was impossible. The villagers' eyes were always upon her, ready to see her stumble. Then came the cruelest moment. A boy no older than 15 shoved her lightly. A joke, he thought amusing. Ilara fell to the muddy ground with a cry. Her cane clattered away, and she lay there, ashamed and hurt. The villagers laughed openly. Some even threw small stones. Alara's face burned and tears pricked her eyes. She wished desperately for the ground to open and swallow her whole. She had always known the village feared her, pitied her, or mocked her, but never had she felt so utterly powerless. And then the world changed. From the edge of the crowd, a shadow moved unlike any other. Tall, impossibly fast, and silent. Before any human could react, it was there. Strong hands lifted Alara from the mud. She gasped, fighting instinctively. But the grip was firm, yet not cruel. "You are safe now," a voice said, deep and calm, with a resonance that seemed to echo in her bones. "Do not be afraid." Alara looked up, blinking through the tears. Standing before her was a man taller than anyone she had ever seen. His hair was black as night, falling in soft waves over a pale, sharp-featured face. His eyes, a brilliant shade of amber, glimmered like liquid gold in the dimming light. Though fear prickled her skin, there was a strange pull toward him, a magnetic force she could not name. The villagers gasped, stepping back. Whispers spread like fire. "The Alpha. The vampire. He has come." Before anyone could intervene, the man carried her away, his movements fluid and unnerving, as if gravity did not apply to him. He did not speak again, and Alara did not dare. The festival, the laughter, the scorn, all faded behind the foggy edge of the forest. Inside the castle, the air was cold but strangely comforting. Tall windows let in pale moonlight, which shimmered across marble floors and towering bookshelves filled with leather-bound tomes. Statues of long-forgotten warriors and scholars lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow her. Despite the grandeur, the castle felt empty, lonely and alive all at once. The vampire set her down gently, his amber eyes watching her every movement. "You have nothing to fear here," he said. "I am Kale." Alara's voice trembled. Why did you—" "Because cruelty is a weakness," Kale replied almost softly. "And you are not weak." The words were strange, unexpected, and they stirred something deep in her. She had spent her life being told she was fragile, worthless, and too broken to matter. And yet here was someone terrifying and powerful, telling her the opposite. For a long while, they said nothing. Alara took in her surroundings. A vast library with ancient scrolls, a garden visible through the moonlit windows, and a hearth where a fire glowed faintly despite the night. Kale did not force her to speak. He merely watched, patient, as if waiting for her to understand that nothing in this place would hurt her unless she wished it. Night passed slowly. Alara slept on a soft bed, the first comfortable sleep she had ever known, and yet her dreams were restless. Shadows whispered, and she could feel eyes upon her, even when she closed them. When she awoke, Kyle was there, standing at the window, watching the first tendrils of dawn creep over the forest. "You have a gift," he said without turning. "You feel what others cannot. You see what others ignore." Alara frowned. I only feel pain, fear, loneliness." "Those are truths, yes," Kyle admitted. "But they are not your weakness. They are your guide. You can see the world in ways the others cannot. You can sense the currents of shadow and light, and perhaps one day even master them." Alara's heart leapt with a strange, dizzying hope. She had never been praised, never been told she mattered in any way beyond being pitied. And yet here was a man, terrifying and divine in his presence, seeing her clearly. Over the following days, Kale showed her the vastness of his home. She learned to walk without stumbling in his halls, to navigate corridors lined with ancient paintings and sculptures. He did not rush her. He simply guided, watching her grow stronger, more confident. At night, he would tell her stories of kingdoms long fallen, of warriors and sorcery, of curses that stretched across centuries. Yet for all his knowledge and power, there was a shadow in Kale's eyes, a loneliness that even centuries could not soothe. Alara felt it and wished she could ease it, though she was only a young, crippled girl from a small village. And then came the night of the hunters. The forest whispered with movement, humans with torches and weapons, sent to drive the vampire from the lands. Kale sensed them first, his body taut, every muscle ready for the inevitable clash. He did not wish to fight, but he would protect Alara at all costs. Alara stood behind him, clutching his cloak. Fear raced through her veins, but something inside her had shifted. She would not cower this time. She would not be the helpless girl of the village square. The hunters broke through the tree line, shouting and brandishing weapons. Kale moved with terrifying speed and precision, disarming them, throwing them aside without harm. And yet, in the midst of it all, one hunter aimed directly at Kale. Ilara, with a courage she did not know she possessed, screamed, "No!" and lunged. The shot missed, but Kale stumbled, just slightly for the first time. He caught her in his arms, amber eyes wide with something he had not shown in centuries, fear and trust. "You have courage," he said, almost in awe. "You are not afraid to stand by me." Ilara's breath caught. She felt a strange warmth in his hold, a bond forming in the chaos, and for the first time she realized that she was no longer the helpless girl of Eldermore, no longer the target of mockery and cruelty. She had a place in this shadowed world at the side of the being who had saved her, not as a pawn, but as a partner in strength. As the hunters retreated, defeated and terrified of the vampire's power, Ilara looked up at Kale. He was wounded slightly, a small cut on his cheek. The golden light of his eyes softened as he met hers. "Do you trust me?" he asked quietly. Ilara nodded, a small smile breaking across her face. I think I do." Kale's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Then we will face what comes together. You are not alone anymore." The night settled over the castle once more. Moonlight spilled through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Outside, the world might still mock, might still fear, might still misunderstand. But inside, in the cold, silent halls of Kale's home, Ilara felt warmth, safety, and the stirring of something powerful: hope, courage, and perhaps even love. And as she fell asleep that night, she knew her life would never be the same. The girl who had been mocked and humiliated was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone unbroken, someone who had glimpsed a world of shadows and light and had survived. The journey had only begun.